Oakley dokley. Depending on how many people we get in, we can stay on camera. If it's like beyond 25, we have to turn off the camera. So let's just see. Maybe
I
it's
think
gonna be intimate, so it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're sharing the slides?
Yeah, calling them up now.
Mm-hmm.
And screen sharing now.
Also, we need to decide when we take a picture. Because I feel like it's nice having the image on the session group, like as the cover photo.
It's so nice to have a picture. I agree with you.
Mm.
We should do this hard today. Okay. We're up on session 2, guys. Woohoo! Okay. So who's getting? My dogs are coming back. I'm muting myself for a second. Okay. Yeah, I think we can. You want to start, Rohan? Or you want to wait?
Let's go. Yeah, we should start now. I think this is a good time.
Right? Okay.
People, yeah. Are you doing the agenda?
Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to Visual Learners Study Club Session 2. Session 2 already. Okay, today's agenda, I tried to give it like minutes. I know we will probably not stay within the minutes, okay, but just as a rough time frame. So I'm disclosing the agenda right now. Agenda for today is for the people who didn't get a chance last week to introduce themselves, to open up the mic and introduce yourselves, please. Rohan will take that part. Then we will give you kind of like a little visualized synopsis of engineering ethics in Web3. Then another one of Frank McConaughey's articles. We figured like it's okay if you only read via the home study the towards a practice of token engineering, but we figured we should go through the 3 different articles today. Discussion about the 2 articles and your personal thoughts on them, right? Because probably you have opinions, which is great. And then we will also quickly go through the exam questions and steer up a little discussion what you think are the right answers. Obviously, we also have our opinions about that. And then we will let you know what is happening next. Another time disclosing, we're recording this, so the people who cannot attend have a chance to watch this again, right? So this session will be recorded, so make sure you feel okay with this, right, when opening your mic and everything. And yeah, so give it over to Rohan.
Hi, so I'll just give a brief like introduction of us again. Like this is me, Rohan, and there's Stella. So we both are the study hosts of Visual Learner Study Club, and this is a part of the TE Fundamental Study Groups. And we are going through the coursework of like Token Engineering Academy of the TE Fundamental Study course. That's our introduction. So I think there are new people here. So I think everyone in the last call we introduced ourselves. Whoever, I don't know who wasn't there. Is Melvin new out here? Melvin, if you can like unmute and you can introduce yourself, give your background, your name, handle, whatever.
Yeah, hi, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, thanks for putting this study group together, Rohan and Stella. It's great to see that you guys are taking the initiative so that we can make this community of token engineers and make this into a token engineering practice. Right. A bit about myself. I'm Melvin Thomas. I'm a co-founder for SahiCoin. We are a social investment discovery platform for crypto investors. So what the problem that we are solving is essentially have all these friends and people who say, hey, we want to know about crypto, we want to invest in crypto, and eventually everyone ends up getting scammed by some kind of information on Twitter, Instagram, or they end up just buying into the hype, and everyone ends up losing money or getting wrecked or rug pulled. So we are essentially trying to solve that problem through a verification layer of what do you say, a kind of financial influencers, right? And we're building the platform for that. And of course, our token engineering design is also geared towards ensuring that optimal outcome for every new person who comes into the crypto ecosystem to learn and invest in crypto. And of course, there's a social media element to it and how the discovery happens, which is mostly driven through the platform. And the idea is that the token incentives have to essentially enable those kind of interactions and outcomes. And that's pretty much what we are essentially designing and here to learn as well. So yeah, I'm currently calling in from Toronto. Right. So yeah, that's where I'm situated.
Nice.
Okay, nice. Nice to have you here. Yeah. Who else can go? Strata Trader. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I can do it. My video's going to work here. Sorry. My name's Adam. Hi, everyone. A little bit about myself. There's too much to share, not enough time. So how about this? I'm an ex-node operator for for a lot of cryptocurrencies that you're aware of. I've been in crypto since 2013, 2014. I keep a low profile, don't really like talking too much, but you know what? I felt like I need to evolve, and I really want to learn a little bit more about this discipline, because I feel that democratization of anything comes, with great responsibility comes great. With great risk comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man or whatever that saying is. And I think it's a great discipline. And I actually went ahead and I think I've gone a little too far down the rabbit hole of TE. But that's just why I'm here. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be a part of your club here, or your work group. Sorry. I was laughing in the previous recording. I think you guys are really cool and funny, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm calling from Ontario, Canada as well. I don't need to give my city, but I'm excited to be here and contribute. And Stella, I used to work in the animation industry, so we can talk offline. Some of my buddies still work for Industrial Light and Magic and Sony Pictures. So, anyways, that's just me. Thank you.
Nice to have you, Strata Trader.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think EST Pure couldn't. Is that how if I should say your name? I don't know. You couldn't. Yeah. Do you want to take it up?
Yeah, there's no problem at all. How do you read me? 5'5", I believe.
We can hear you.
Okay, great stuff. Sorry about that. Sorry about last time I couldn't attend, due to some technical problems, but hopefully I made it this time. It was good experience, first session. Hopefully the next one's going to be good as well. A bit of myself. My background is the marine sciences. I'm the early adopter of the Olympus DAO and member of Fight Club, which is sub-DAO of Bunkless DAO. Here to share knowledge, hang around with good people, and basically have fun. Make the future bright as well for the crypto.
Nice to have you here. Yeah.
Hi.
Is there anyone else we are missing? You can unmute yourselves.
Cat banners.
Yeah. They were there last time, right? Or were they not?
Nope.
I was there in spirit, maybe. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stella. It's good to see you guys. Yeah, I'm Kat. I am currently traveling, so my schedule's been a little bit crazy the past couple of weeks. But I have a background in business, actually, but I spent the past 12 years in fashion and film, doing costume design and fashion styling. So I have a lot of experience doing that, and now I'm doing more user experience and creative direction. And I'm really taking from my background in business. I really have always loved macroeconomics and behavioral economics, and how kind of the human behavior affects markets and from my kind of like understanding of how trends work and working with that in fashion for so long, it kind of is actually relates to economics much more than most people may think. And I find it really fascinating. It's just, I'm excited to learn more about this. And I just can't believe we're here at a place already with crypto where we're talking about tokenomics already. I think that's really cool.
Nice to have you. Is there anyone else? I actually don't remember from last time who I'm missing. Even others who can't unmute themselves can type your introductions out on the chat if you want to. Can you think of anyone, Stella, that we haven't introduced yet?
I think Soulmate. I think they
Yeah.
didn't get a chance last time, but otherwise I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they can't unmute is what they said.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like in the chat is good enough.
Right. Okay, we are moving forward. So we are going to start with like discussing engineering ethics in Web3, the article written by Michael Zagan. I feel like it's a good way to start module 1, even though it's the last section, simply because I feel like it, in some sense, ties together the entire field and what we are doing this for. So in the article itself, in my opinion, it mainly aims to help us build an intuition for the responsibilities we hold as engineers or builders of this like evolving ecosystem. So Michael basically goes about building his argument through these 3 points that are on the screen. First, that what we are doing is we are building technical systems, but they are also deeply entangled with socio-economic systems. And therefore, we will have a long-standing implication on our social institute from what we are building. Secondly, since Web3 is native to the internet and not to any particular nation or jurisdiction, it is up to us to define what the guiding values and principles are of this space. And third, it is that he goes on to basically discuss how to deal with scenarios where these values come in conflict. Because whenever you have these ideals or values, they will come in conflict in different places. And how do we resolve them? And how should we look at the entire field of engineering and our ethics with it, redefined in these new paradigms? So in the next slide, Michael basically goes about, in some sense, trying to find what the values of Web3 ecosystem could be, borrowing from other neighboring disciplines. And one of the things that he mentions is the Cicero's Creed, which is, in some sense, just like the Hippocratic Oath that physicians take, us engineers, in some sense, need to follow engineering's oldest ethic. And in the next slide, he goes on to look for the values in Web3 using the value systems in professional engineering. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. Stella?
You don't want to say something about this?
Oh, do I? No. I think I will tie it together with the next slide. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
This one?
It's not loading on my screen though.
Oh, I think, okay, this is the problem. Can everyone else see my screen though? Or
Let me read.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me go off and
Okay, sure. Give it a second, guys.
Yeah, just pause for a second. So let me see. Oh yeah, okay, it's here.
Yeah?
Oh no, so yeah. Okay, so basically, in this slide, he goes on to look for values in Web3 using the value systems in professional engineering. And the 3 ones that really stood out to me majorly, apart from the ones that are on the screen, were the ones that our primary obligation is to protect the safety of and respect the right of consent of humans. Let me switch on my video too. 1 sec. Yeah. So our primary obligation is to protect the safety of and respect the consent of humans. We need a constant awareness of the experimental nature of any project. And we need to imaginatively forecast its possible side effects and a reasonable effort to monitor them. And the image on the screen, for example, like the bridge, this isn't the exact bridge, but at least in Trent's article, he gave that example of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which was built perfectly until there was this resonance from the wind, which made the entire structure collapse. And in some sense, it comes down to to the engineers who built it, we have to accept accountability for the results of our project. And therefore, we need to be very clear about the side effects of what we build and at least have a reasonable effort to monitor them. Michael, in some sense, observes that Web3 value systems follow a common thread of privacy, transparency, and agency. These were the three major points that he narrowed down in the article. And he said that sometimes these values come in conflict and direct tension. Like, for example, the example he gives, in fact, is that in pursuit of agency, one's right of control of their own actions can sometimes negatively affect others. And in these cases, we have a couple of options. Like, either we can build, and these are my thoughts, that we can build protocols that prohibit bad actions completely, but that reduces agency. What we can also do is we can let people have their agency, they can make their decisions, good or bad, but at the end of the day, we build incentive structures and incentive landscapes such that they're disincentivized to do something that's collectively bad and incentivized to do something that's collectively good. But very often these boundaries are very fuzzy, and because of changing incentive landscapes, people's behaviors also change, and we also need to be very aware of the emergent phenomena of what we of what we build. So for a very clear example is, for example, in Web 2, social media companies like Facebook, Instagram, etc., they, in some sense, were optimizing for ad revenue. But this could only be done in some sense by increasing people's time on site. And that can be done by polarizing posts in our newsfeed. We create in groups and out groups, we have arguments, and aggravating posts kind of keep on coming on our news. And the emergent phenomena of that was that there's a huge polarization of political democracies across the globe. There is spread of fake news. There's, in some sense, also you can make an argument that body dysmorphia in an entire generation of kids is a result of the way we have defined the incentive structures of a social media company. So, of course, we can't predict the stuff when we are building it. But when we are building a new infrastructure, because in some sense, you can make an argument that we are building the metaphorical roads, bridges, and the parks of the world to come, in the new future that we are building. And it is especially our duty as token engineers to have a responsibility to uphold a values-first mindset, use our tools to study the effects more rigorously, and no matter how difficult, doing the bare minimum to actually understand the emergent effects of what we are building. And even if it's a little bit of effort in that direction, it is exponentially better than what we've done in our previous technology. Okay, so next slide. I guess I'll just clear it all up to the path forward that he discusses at the end is he wraps it all up with reminding us that we need to uphold a value first system, which is it's not a destination, but it is a journey. We need to have a human centric approach while we are building the technology of the future. Our actions and decisions have a long lasting impact, and we owe it to the future that we build sustainable economies and experiences for the world. And that is where I think token engineering really comes in, that we will and this lends itself perfectly to the next article too, by Trent, what is the can blockchains go rogue in the next slide? Yeah, because in some sense I guess these series of articles define now how can we go about building a more rigorous approach to building token engineering while being ethical, while having a values first and ethical mindset behind it. Stella, do you want to take it ahead?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we also shared the articles amongst ourselves because I'm very much a Trent fan and Rohan is very much a Michael fan. So this is also the reason for splitting it up this way. I think it's super important what Trent says, and can blockchains go rogue? Because he points out the example of Bitcoin as almost like being a life form, because it is like programmed to ensure its own survival in a sense, right? And even though it keeps sucking the life out of planet Earth, it will surely survive, like all of us, right? And it's doing this through a really smart incentive structure, not because it's the best blockchain or greatest blockchain ever built, but it's just the incentive structure is probably unbreakable. So yeah, he says it, right? He says like getting incentives right is super difficult, but it's very important, because if you're not, if you don't think it through until the last bit, then eventually maybe you will end up with a rogue blockchain that creates or an AI that creates an endless amount of paper clips, I believe is his example. And then eventually maybe the AI decides, why do I really need humans? They might use my paper clips, but I don't really need them to use my paper clips. So let's turn off humanity, which is kind of very frightening. He also says once a decentralized system with the incentive structure is released, there is no taking back, right? And this is what's happening with Bitcoin. You cannot really take it back or take it out of existence. So it is, in fact, kind of its own life form. It is crucial to align incentives carefully before launching a tokenized ecosystem, because potentially you can really harm people with it, right? I mean, just in the last few months, all of those tokenized systems that, have kind of failed people, have led to, even people committing suicide. So I think it's really good that also the Token Engineering Academy is putting such a strong focus on ethics first, values first, right? Because we need to be aware that just because we can build something doesn't mean we necessarily should build something. And being aware of that fact I think it's super important. Anything to add, Rohan? You want to add to this? Or are you good?
No, I think you covered it well. And especially, you highlighted that very well, that once you set these systems out, they're out there in the open, and the fact that they're decentralized, they're going to exist. Like, there's no way to take them down. And that's why token engineering becomes so important. We need to really think through the repercussions of what we are building and make sure that our incentives align with what we really want to.
Yeah, I like to compare this actually to a design thinking process, right? Usually if you apply a design thinking to product design, and I know some of you in here know about that approach, it is all about like, who is this serving, right? Why am I doing this? So recently, I think I said this last week as well, there have been a lot of platforms popping up saying, hey, launch your DAO token here, or launch your tokenized ecosystem with us, right? And it's like this out of the box idea, which, to a lot of people actually is very appealing, but it's not necessarily a safe or good way to move forward. So, I mean, I know you guys know that, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here, so, okay. Next one is towards a practice of token engineering. And just saying again, we only asked you to read this one, but we think in the face of Trent writing those 3 articles as a series, we thought we should go through them all today. But towards a practice of token engineering is probably like the core of those 3 articles, because it talks all about the methodology, right? How can I approach this new practice of token engineering, and why are we calling this token engineering instead of like incentive engineering or token incentivization systems or something like this? So the main questions he asks in this article is, how do we design incentives for tokenized ecosystems? So what's the approach, right? How do we analyze tokenized ecosystems once we start building them? And how do we verify the tokenized ecosystems that we have been building? And those are literally, I mean, I made also a little roadmap that you guys can save out from the Google Drive later. But these are literally the 3 steps you will have to go through, right? And I think it gives a lot of guidance, especially in the face of, maybe you're overwhelmed. You kind of know the objective function of what you want to do, but you might not necessarily understand how to get from A to Z. I think his his initial guidance steps are really good to get started, and then essentially iterate from there, which, you know, I see honestly again as a design thinking process where you put all of those crazy ideas on a map, right? Then you iterate, and ideate, and eventually you take out those 5 ideas that are somewhat feasible and make sense, and those are the ones you put into prototypes. You analyze them, you verify them, you simulate them with the tools given. And he's also discussing that the tools are not very great right now, so we definitely need to work on that. Yeah, so the naming challenge, right? He says, after all, how often does an academic economist get a chance to deploy an economy? Yeah, actually just in game economies, right? This is why Web3 blockchain games have been such an important part of how do we design tokenized ecosystems, because they are an ecosystem just by themselves. So it's like the smallest example. And this is also for those of you who are part of Machinations. This is why Machinations is focusing in their tutorials, I think, a lot on game economies, because yeah, it's a closed system, and it's fairly simple to model and to visualize, while, you know, economic systems have like so many more letters to it, right? Like I think he says this. He says like, yeah, when humans are getting involved, you know, designing an ecosystem becomes just so much messier, I believe, are his words. And I think he's right. Right? We make stuff messy. We don't make it clean. And so having a human-centric approach generally is super important, because if, like, sometimes engineers tend to not factor in humans, and then, you know, stuff happens. I don't know if Rohan gave this example before. I think there was another bridge that broke down, you said, right? And it was because humans or like a band marched on this bridge, and then
Yeah, there was an army that was marching with a particular frequency, and that created a resonance that broke the bridge, which was an actual legit thing that happened. Yeah,
yeah.
Pretty crazy.
So we make stuff messier. It's evident. Okay, so the token part is coming from what I filtered out from the article. It comes from economics, it comes from economic game theory, right? And essentially mechanism design. And then the engineering part, it is because it needs rigorous analysis, responsibility bound by ethics, verification, and design, which is all inherent to engineering. And both areas kind of meet under optimization design. So he found out in his studies that optimization design actually is like this. Maybe I should actually graphically have built this differently, but it actually fuels both areas, or can fuel both areas and make it better, right? Okay, let me get to the last one. Okay, so this is like, in my opinion, his version of the roadmap, right? You want to design a tokenized ecosystem, great, right? So first you define the objective function, clarify the function, the goal of the tokenized system, right? If you don't have that clear, don't probably even start, right? Like, this needs to be clear first. From there, you first formulate the problem. So write down the objectives and constraints for the tokenized system. Who will use the ecosystem and take stake? So who do you think, will become stakeholder, will kind of like invest, support whatever you're trying to build? Then get the building blocks. So there are already a lot of like existing building blocks, right? He names them all in the article. Makes this really cool list. I didn't include this here, but you can look it up anytime. And he calls them solvers, right? Because they're already existence. They are like good operators, good solvers, right? So try to work with them first. So in a case of NFTs, I guess it would be, the Open Zeppelin contracts, for example. I think that's a very relatable, good operator, So that, right? If you then figure out, well, my idea is a little bit too novel, I think I need to come up with something new, right? This is when you go further to the novel invention. So if existing patterns fail you come up with a novel pattern is the next option. I was told by some head researchers of some, I guess, very famous protocols that actually building novel ideas is not always a good idea, because I tend to be this person, oh, I have this great idea, and then no one had built it before. And he said, well, if stuff becomes too novel, then sometimes you make yourself like very exposed and very hackable, actually. So I think this was really good advice. So he recommended, like, yeah, you can add novelty, but don't go too crazy in the first step, right? So try to use a building block that already exists, then add your novelty on top that you think you need, right, to make this work, but don't go novel all the way. That was his recommendation, and I tend to now think this way. This is why I'm sharing it with you. And then the last step is essentially applying the tools, right, to simulate, verify, and as well for design exploration of the same. And yeah, I think some of you have already, like, I know Roro is in the CAT study group. Some of you, I think, are actually in Machinations. And I think we will see a lot more tools popping up. The current problem that he also describes is that the tools we have right now for example, circuit design, because this is, I think, the area he originally comes from, it is very, very expensive, actually. So this software is like crazy expensive. So all of you who are software developers already, we need tools. I think it's what I'm trying to say.
Also, there are some open source tools being built, like Token Spice is there. CatCat is part of it, yeah. So the token engineering community is actually building a lot of these tools. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, and now, sorry for the long monologue, actually we want to know what you guys think. And we are on time, I'm impressed. So what did you guys take from those two articles? Where did it make you wonder or think?
Lutra, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. So first of all, thanks for your really nice presentation, and I think you really got all the points. Well, I liked the first article. Number 5, ethics of engineering. Just to be reminded or to create some kind of awareness about the responsibility, right? And I think this is really important part, especially if we want to deal with problems of the commons or public goods. Yeah, we need to have a little bit awareness of that. So stressing this point is a really good thing. Yeah. It's like ethics in philosophy, and we need such thing, especially in a new space, right? If we decentralize everything, we might need new kind of norms, values, and we're able to create them. Yeah. So let's be careful. Yeah, because values are really an important part. And with regard to the article toward the practice of token engineering, I really loved it because it gave you something concrete. You know, you can read everywhere, well, think about the use case of your token. Well, fine, yeah. But how do I do it in concrete? Yeah, and to have some guidelines for your thoughts. Yeah, these are the important elements. Was really helpful, at least to my thinking.
Yeah.
So that's it from my side, if that's okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that really covered, most of what we thought too. And I agree. Like, I think ethics should be the guiding force of what we build, because that's the fun. Because again, the things we are building, we are going through an exponential curve of technology, and the repercussions are like, we don't understand how important the decisions we make currently are. Just like the social media giants didn't know the repercussions of what they were building were. StrataTrader, I think you had unmuted. I'm sorry if I cut you. Yeah.
No, you didn't. I just wanted to say thank you for putting together this beautiful slide deck. It was very well laid out. As I went through the article several times, and I went down some other rabbit holes on every single link that Trent. I'm a Trent fan after reading that, for sure. And the thing that stood out to me, I think, Stella, you mentioned something about the reuse thing, and that's something that stood out to me. So one of the cardinal rules in the Ethereum ecosystem, especially if you're a Solidity programmer, is that you should always reuse code, because you're right, you never know what backdoors exist. So I wanted to echo that. For me, that was very big. But what I really found very fascinating was the fact that the sort of structure being brought to something that is so critical to the future of decentralized economies, and how he synthesized everything was just beautifully laid out. The thing that stood out to me mainly was the try existing patterns. I think Trent in his article said, some people call these crypto economic primitives, but patterns are another form of design communication. And there are patterns for example, curation, proof of human or compute work, identity, reputation, governance, and third-party arbitration. But at the end of the day, they are already a bunch of these patterns that already exist. And we need to ask ourselves, is this appropriate for me or part of my core system? Or are these going to be bolt-ons, right, to address particular attack vectors? For me, it was a fascinating article, and the rigor and the framework that's being brought to this discipline it echoed. And the most important thing was the bridge. I forgot the name of the Tacoma Bridge video, right?
Yeah.
And that is something in Canada that we know. Like I don't have the ring, but a lot of my friends have that ring, and it's a very serious thing, and so I'm happy that I hope that we bring that same level of accountability to these decentralized economies as they brought to the engineering field. So everything that was the framework, the way that the trying existing patterns, and Stella, you mentioned design thinking. That's everything that came through my head.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I think also, super, super good. Thank you for all of this. I think something that also Michael mentions is, I lost my chain of thought. Damn. Over to Rohan. I will get it back. Sorry.
It's okay.
I've no clue what direction you were going. Yeah. Did someone unmute? I'm sorry.
Hibiscus.
Can I paint a devil's advocate picture?
Oh yeah, of course. Go. Daniel, hi.
So I actually really don't like the fact that we're so obsessed with ethics right now. Let me try to explain. What's the difference between engineering a bridge and engineering a token ecosystem? One is like a robust history of understanding and wisdom and best practices. We know how to build a bridge. Therefore, we're not like redesigning, like this is how you build a bridge, blah, blah, blah. It's people know what to do. People know the things they should check. And we lack that knowledge in token designing. We're nowhere near that level of robustness or understanding. And there's this fascinating things that humans do. So we could, let's say, have autonomous driving much sooner than we will have autonomous driving. But the reason we won't have it as soon is because the level of fatalities that autonomous driving has to create has to be such a higher order of magnitude less than already exists. So even though, let's say, autonomous driving could happen sooner and save lives because there's less accidents, the fact that there's still going to be accidents is unacceptable. Or another example, in health, right? So there's a whole bunch of innovative drugs and innovative practices that could technically save lives. But because there's still a margin of error, that they won't allow something that could potentially jeopardize somebody's life, even though statistically it could save more lives than it could kill. And so we end up having like a weird, convoluted idea of what's good and what's bad, mostly because of the time horizon at which we're looking at things. And although I think qualities are important, so let's say I disagree with ethics, but I love the idea of transparency. Like, should things be transparent? Yes. Should we be boxing things as good or bad? Probably not, because there's so much for us to learn in this space. And if we already start to box ourselves in with what we already know and what we're already comfortable with, it can stifle innovation like regulation does all the time. So I just don't like the obsession with ethics. It's not that it's not important. I just think we're in an experimental phase. People should go break stuff, learn. That's where we're at. We're not a advanced, refined discipline.
No,
Can I react to that?
Stella, go ahead, yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I think it also needs to be viewed in the historical context, right? So the Tacoma Bridge, as to my knowledge, and as to the car that was like being put on this bridge, like it broke down like what, over 50 years ago, right? At that time, that type of bridge was fairly new, you know? But nonetheless, if the engineers would have taken the time to review the construction of that bridge from multiple angles, right, instead of just being okay with as far as they went with that, then, you know, that bridge would have not needed to break down. And I think this is what ethics is about to teach us here. It's not about a constant obsession and to always be like a scaredy cat of trying anything, right? It's about this constant vibe of FOMO and of, hey, I could miss out in this space, because that's what's been driving the space now for a few years, right? And this is what brings harm to people. And so I don't think this is an obsession. I think this is just a necessary ingredient. Okay, sorry, 0xto, I'm aware you were also about to say something.
Sorry. Hey, hi everyone. I think the rabbit guy make a great point, but I just wanted to comment on something. That first of all, I don't fully agree on the obsession with the good and bad point of view, because I think that good and bad are like very subjective concept to some extent, and of course you can argue that some stuff are good if we, for example, talk about the survival of humanity, but from one country to another or from one culture to another, what you define as good or bad or ethically acceptable might change. Yeah. That being said, I agree that it's really important to maybe label things when we go into research and innovation. Wait 1 second, sorry, because I'm also losing my train of thoughts, like Stella. No, but what I wanted to say is basically when we're dealing with an innovation, we can't always predict what's going to happen. But that's why, in my opinion, when we talk about ethics in field like this, it's much more about accountability and responsibility rather than arguing we're doing something for the greater good or not, because of course you can never totally predict what's going to happen. There is going to be errors, there is going to be misses, and this is also how you learn out of it. But I think what is ethically correct, if I may say, in that position is just like to basically hold and take your responsibilities when you deal with stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think I agree with that point of view. That, first of all, we do need experimentation in this space. Of course, that's what this is built on. We need experimentation, but we also need tools and techniques to do it in a safer environment. And that's why the verification and the testing stage of token engineering actually comes in, where you actually, within closed loops, you actually test and verify whether the optimization function that you've built is actually optimizing for the thing you want at the end of the day. And I think testing validation is a huge part which we don't have currently. Currently, we're just making like protocols, putting it out there. And in some sense, like, of course, like Terra Luna, etc., like situations like that are going to happen. And we need to go through that sometimes in order to learn from our mistakes. But at the same time, we really should be aware of it, not to get it to that stage. If when people, we can test these systems out earlier and find faults in them, raise them. We need to do, as a community, we need to do a much better job at raising our voices when we know something is going wrong. That's it. Yeah.
Can I wanted to just say something to Nourish Rabbit and OXTO. When you were speaking, I was thinking what you were saying, and I kind of agree. And the one thing that I would say, like I had the same thought in the back of my mind when I think of ethics, right? Stifling innovation, and then who determines good or bad, right? OXTO. Sorry, I don't know your name, but And the one thing I would say, the way I was trying to rationalize it in my head as I was going through the material is that I started saying, you know what, for me, I think ethics is kind of like the consensus algorithm. Okay. Let's have a baseline consensus algorithm. Okay. And then on top of that, we can refine that. But I do think that we need, like, I agree. We shouldn't stifle innovation, and, you know, we want to, but stifling innovation, but doing it in a safe manner, or not safe manner, sorry. It's about having some form of a baseline. That's the way I was trying to look at it. So the reason why I unmuted is because I actually, both points that were brought up, I actually had very similar ones. Because one thing you hear often is that one, you know, I'm not trying to get into politics here, so I'm just saying that, you know, when you hear this comment, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, right? Yeah. So it just depends on what side of the equation you're on. And so valid points, and I think we should talk more openly about these.
I think also I realized that ethics has like a very strange definition, I believe, in here in this group. Ethics is not about being right or wrong, right? Ethics is about looking at one thing and making assumptions of, you know, what if it could have a bad or a good result, right? And then who could it have a good or a bad result to? So I think that is why I also called it an ingredient, right? It's not that this should be, you know, above everything else, right? But it's certainly, like, the past years have shown that acting without any kind of, you know, consciousness and just for the sake of acting is not necessarily the best approach. And I think, honestly, Curious Rabbit, I think self-driving, totally different topic. I think it's a little bit like comparing apples and bananas with each other, in my opinion. But that's just me. But still a valid point to bring it up.
Stella, do we want to move to the exam questions? I think we might even run out of time there. But this is an amazing discussion. I really liked having back and forth with the, like, you know, people who've joined the group. Yeah.
Me too. Actually, so just so you guys know, we're planning this always for 90 minutes, right? We realize that a lot of you will have to leave after an hour. So we try to keep the first discussion round kind of short. So we're going to move on to the exam questions. But after that, Rohan and I will keeping around for 30 minutes more, so we can, you know, have like a fuller discussion on the topic, because it seems that it's a point that interests you. Okay, so module 1, chapter 1. These are the questions.
You're not sharing the slides, Stella.
Yeah, I am.
Are you? Oh, okay. My bad. I stopped watching it, I guess.
What the hell? No, just kidding. So, what do you guys think? Question 1 was, what is, according to Trank McConaughey, arguably the core feature of tokenized ecosystems? Any takers for this one? Maybe Kaleverse. I'm gonna call you out. Any opinion on what could be the right answer? And why? If Kaleverse cannot unmute, maybe Rachel13 wants to go with this one.
I can unmute actually, but
hi.
Hi. To be honest, I'm not sure about the answer. I'd like to hear it from you guys.
Okay, so fair warning. I asked Angela. Some of those questions have multiple right answers, so there is a little bit of a catch to those questions. I don't think that's the case. Zerexio was like, so
maybe aligning incentives or safety. I think both are the most the core features.
Actually, he says it in his article. So most of the answers you can actually pretty much look up in the article. I said this also in the Back to Basics study group. It's less about what we think. It's more about what we have read, right? So don't make the error that I used to do during school and be like, yeah, that's my opinion. And then I got a, D. So this is literally about what you've read. And so, yeah, I mean, I can share my thingy. Yep, objective more than incentive actually. So I think it's answer 3. Who's with me on answer 3? Raise your little paws.
How do we know answer? Like, is there a multiple? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing answer 3. Are you looking in the chat box? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I figured that all of you have already downloaded the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, I'll download it.
No, that's on me. Don't worry. I can actually. Also, I wanted to make this prettier because it annoyed me that it wasn't as pretty. But I can also open this.
You might have to zoom in more, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna. Is this working?
A little more zooming would work.
Okay, then let me do this. 200.
Yeah, but
So
yeah.
yeah, I guess that's it. So what is it? You guys tell me. So I think it's number 3. Anyone goes with this? Getting people to do stuff. Yeah, I think so too, Lutra. Okay, moving on to the next one. The design of a tokenized ecosystem starts with defining the goal. Why can this be challenging? Who wants to take this one? Come on, Daniel, Curious Rabbit, go for it. Take it away. What do you think is the answer? Or
I think it's not always clear in the beginning. You can define some objectives, and then as you go through, you're continually rehashing those objectives. I guess I'll choose from one of these answers, sorry.
So you're not choosing any of those answers? You're making your own?
I agree with answer 1 and answer 3. They're about and answer 2 is an answer 3. So I would do like answer 1 and 3.
Yeah, it's actually what Ronan and I also came up with, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Although the third one, I'm still a little. If I have to pick one, I would go for the first one. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 3. What makes the designer's responsibility in decentralized systems special? Any takers for this one? Lutra. I feel like Lutra went through all the questions.
Sorry, I'm late. I had to activate my mic. I guess it's answer number 1.
Yeah, we thought so too. Maybe number 3. We were like, maybe it's also number 3, but yeah. Hibiscus cultivar, you're on for the next. What, according to Trent McConaughey, are most needed tools for the token engineering sector?
Hi guys. I struggle with this one, but I'm thinking 3 simulators.
Yeah, actually he lists all 3 of
I
them.
really thought it was all 3, yeah. Even I thought it was all.
We think it's all 3. But just so you guys know, we don't have the answers either, right?
Yeah.
So this is really just us comparing answers.
And we can continue this async like after on our channel too. Like we should maybe do that.
And in actual exams, are we supposed to have just one answers or multiple answers?
It'll be multiple. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked Angela, so she confirmed that some of the questions have multiple correct answers. So just look out for this. It's a catch. And 0xto, you can take the next one then. What's the objective function of Bitcoin? And then I will answer your question.
Going to the moon. No, that's not it. I would say maximize the security of the network.
Agreed, yeah.
But at the same time, the security of the network relies on decentralization, so isn't it maximizing decentralization?
Good point. He's just not mentioning this in the article, but that doesn't mean you're not right, I think.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
So, okay.
Yeah.
But I think I would choose.
I would say one and 2, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Please rate the following statement. The value keepers provide in an ocean network is keeping the token price stable. True or false? Estapir, you want to go for this one? Estapir?
Well, I can try. I do not know anything about the protocol itself, but Keeper, I would imagine that could be more or less like a node. So node is a node, so I would go with false.
Yeah, I think you're right about this. He mentions that the value keepers are there to correctly run nodes in network for an maybe exchange of tokens. So he never says anything about keeping the token price stable. Okay. In general, it's multiple choice. Yes, it is. Okay. What's Ocean's protocol objective function? Rohan.
Oh, I'm here?
Yeah, you on.
Okay. Didn't we just the first one, right? Curated proofs market. I'm in the okay. I'm in the other question. Maximize the supply of relevant AI data and services.
I think yes.
Yeah.
And then how did the Ocean team call their new curation design pattern to maximize Ocean's objective function? Melvin, you want to take this one?
Yeah, it's a curated proofs market. Actually, the thing is that they've switched from this right now. I haven't actually read up on what they're doing currently, but yeah. Of the article, it's what I understood is curated proof market.
Yeah, I think he states on multiple occasions it's CPM. So
yeah. At least in the article.
Yeah. No, also in like 2 presentations he was giving. I think he's saying it's CPM. So that's also what I went for. And then who wants to take the last question? Let's give this to Chris Renzo, P1 to A2.
Look at the article for that. I can't remember the exact formula.
Yeah, it's filled with variables and placeholders. Like the good thing is he explains it in all its detail in the article, but that doesn't mean I completely understand what this means. I just know that the visual of the first one is the correct one. This is what I know.
Also, like, how many of y'all did? Because Stella, explained that the second symbol, the alpha one, was something she wasn't clear about. Like, are others also unclear about what that means? So it's actually a proportionality sign, by the way. So the expectation of Rij is proportional to the things on the right, is what it's trying to say.
Stratorada, you said false. To which did you say false? To the CPM?
I'm sorry. No. I thought we were. Is it the correct equation for Ocean's token reward function? And I just thought what I remember loosely. I thought it was an accurate equation. I think it was a different equation.
Oh no, there are 2 equations. Like it's A and B. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wrong then. So I'm false. Sorry, just ignore my false.
I think
the A one is correct.
The first one seems to be the right one.
Yeah.
Okay, let me quickly check if there. I think was there one more? No. Now we go to
Chapter 5.
The last page, or not quite the last page, actually 2.
Yeah, there's one here.
Sorry, here. So you're taking it away now. You go.
Okay, so what is, according to Michael Zargham, the role of the token engineering community in web? Who wants to take this? Lutra, do you want to take this? Okay.
Hippocratic Oath, right?
Oh no, the options are like research, education, building technical solutions, investing and funding, setting standard. Oh yeah, okay, no. So it's on the previous page, on the 3rd page, the final question.
Or also on the screen. I'm sharing the screen.
It is multiple choice in my opinion, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't find the question right now. I'm a little bit confused. Sorry about that.
Can you see the screen? Are you like Stella's sharing her screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I got you. Nearly all of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, apart from investing and funding, I thought it was all of it.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't think I ever saw investing and funding in the on the article at least. Yeah, it makes sense for research, education, building technical solutions, standard setting. Yeah. Next one, Stella. Okay, what's the name of the first statement about engineering ethics known today? First statement, okay. Hippocratic Oath, Roman laws, Cicero's Creed. Curious Rabbit, do you want to take this since?
Cicero's Creed.
Yeah, perfect. Values for engineers can be in tension to each other. Often one's right to control their own actions can negatively impact. True or false? Hibiscus cultivar? Okay. Can you take this? Okay. If not, then ratio 13.
I'll say.
Mine is 50% chance.
Okay, perfect.
I'll say it's true.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, the next one, true or false? Adherence to the Web3 value system adhere to regulations out of pragmatism rather than in deference to nation-state regulatory authorities. Who wants to take this? Chris, do you want to take this up? Also, if you guys disagree, you can put on the chat, yeah?
What question are we on? Sorry, I lost track of what we're doing.
The true or false, yeah. The one she highlighted.
The 5, sorry.
Maybe also see for Seeker. Seeker hasn't yet had a chance. Banana Chain didn't really have a chance to answer something, I think. Cat didn't have a chance. So.
Yeah, I would say this is true. The article states it.
Perfect, yeah. Okay, so next question, Seeker can take it, I guess. Oh, okay. And the last one, Banana Chain can take it, I guess. Seeker, can you?
So what's the last one exactly? The second last one is for the second option because public cannot understand everything. It's complex and they need representatives who are experts.
And yeah, last one.
Banana Chain.
Banana Chain, can you take this?
I'm just reading.
Okay.
What was the previous answer? I actually missed that somehow.
Oh, the previous
one or two?
The second option.
Second option.
Second one.
Yeah.
No, I'm just busy reading it at the moment. Just saying because it's a small print at the.
Wait, I can also try and make this bigger for you. Sorry.
Yeah, the last.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
You good?
Mm-hmm. Lord, it's something that says.
Maybe we should read it out because the silence is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps two.
So the first one is second one is because crypto networks incentivize this role of verifiers, watchers, or judges in decentralized autonomous organizations. So I don't actually know. Wait one second. I have to read this too now.
I think it's number one.
The first one, yeah, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can have. Even I kind of felt like that, but yeah, this first one feels more right. 0xTO. Yeah, okay. If we have any like disagreements from the ones we've decided, we can async on the channel, just have this conversation go on. Stella, do you wanna like continue the discussion? Or we have to describe the homework and stuff.
Quickly go through the homework maybe, and then like whoever needs to leave like is obviously allowed to leave, and whoever wants to stick around to discuss Michael's and Trent's articles a little bit further is welcome to stay with us. So for next week, reflect on today's discussions, right? What have you learned from other people's perspectives? Because this is why we're doing this. We're doing this to share opinions and also be courageous like Daniel, you know, and share an opinion that might not be popular with everyone, right? That's something we actually should do, I think. So I encourage you guys also to think that way. Add to your notes if you caught something interesting, right? So if you think there's something of value, like the roadmap or stuff, I'm gonna upload this to the Google Drive. I'm gonna share this in our chat, so you guys can, you know, you can watch this session again, you can review the slides again, and also our very own token engineer journalist, Rohan, is gonna type a little summary into the Notion as well. So make use of that, right? For next week, it would be good if you guys, it wouldn't be good, like it's mandatory to work through Module 1 and Chapter 2. So watch the video, read the paper, right, which is Foundations of Cryptoeconomic Systems, and go beyond that, right? So if there are other resources linked to articles or to papers, like go deeper. Like if you have the time, right, and your brain is not already smushy, like go deeper. Keep asking questions, right? Also during the week, if you struggle to figure something out, put it in our chat. It's not that Rohan and I are specialists in this or anything. We're at the same stage than you guys, right? But there are actually mentors in token engineering who we can bring those questions to. So if you're struggling with something, then just put it there, right? I guess otherwise we will continue next week as mentioned, and now it's like open floor for further discussion. Woo-hoo.
Also, I'm going to update the Notion page, so there'll be a session 3 page available by the end of this call.
And maybe we can take the picture now?
Oh yeah, let's do that, yeah.
Oh God.
Anyone who can switch on the, anyone who can switch on the videos, please do.
Yay,
Hi, Lutra.
Who else wants to show their pretty faces?
Good to see you again.
Pretty faces.
Anyone else?
Come on, guys.
Let's go. We need more pictures.
More pretty faces. Come on. Oh, that's a pretty face right there. Okay. Anyone else wants to be pretty? Okay. Otherwise, I will count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, I captured us.
Let's go.
Thank you, guys.
Now it's on the blockchain, immutable.
Oh. Thank God it's not, but
So can I just ask you a couple of quick questions? So as we go through them, I apologize, I missed the exam question. So after I go through it on my own, then just try to answer the questions myself, just to give it, to kind of get a sense, right? Mm-hmm. And these questions are, I have to go to the website every time to get. Oh no, there's chapter 2, okay, there's other questions here.
All of them are on the single PDF. Also, by the way, right now it's just a preview of the exams that will be there. I think October onwards, like mid-October onwards, we'll actually get access to actually fill up the questions in the modules online, and we can actually get a score for it, etc. Yeah, we'll be graded on that, not this.
Okay.
They'll be the same questions from what we know.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yeah.
I'll come prepared next time.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we should mention that also. By the way, like we should have mentioned that in chapter 2, we also are going to do the questions after the session. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, we're also coming up with this structure as we go. Essentially, we're trying to become better every time. But yeah, we thought it's valuable probably for most to just go through the questions. For me, it was like reading the questions. It was like, oh, maybe I should go through this article again. You know?
Yeah.
I think just from that side, it was very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Also for me, like, I mean, with these articles also, something that keeps on getting highlighted is how important it is to understand different mental models. Like, for example, since I studied as an engineer and I studied as even as a physics major. So for me, the mental models that I bring to this field are very different than what Stella brings. Like, the design perspective, the approach she takes in thinking through these questions are very interesting. Through these articles are very interesting. Like even the optimization paradigm that they were using in this space. Again, like I have been a data scientist, but I've actually never really thought through it that systematically. And seeing the systematic breakdown of okay, like we can actually break down into goals and agents and clock and measurement tools, etc. Like there's a very interesting perspective that I found. If anyone has any points to add about mental models, I would really love that discussion because I feel like we're not completing the crypto economic flower yet, and I think different fields really bring very interesting perspectives.
I think also relates to what. Oh, sorry, Lutra, go.
No, nothing. I'm just listening.
Okay.
No, I was just saying it kind of relates to what Curious Rabbit was saying before, right? He called it obsession, but like the idea is that none of these different areas are becoming an obsession. That's the idea of the crypto economic flower, right? Because they are all evenly represented in that flower, and I think this is the level we probably need to get to. It's going to be a long and hard way, right, to make these things level out. And then I also think, depending on what kind of tokenized ecosystem you're building, probably you have to give like more precedence to one of those fields than to others to make that specific system work. That's also something to consider, I guess.
Yeah.
So may I add, you mean in concrete, it's something different to construct an A&M in comparison to a cooperative like a DAO, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good example, because because it does different things, right? It also needs different things to work well. And and then probably you have to give weight to, for example, ethics or social studies in a DAO more than in a market maker, right? It's just it fulfills different goals. But this is why I think the roadmap that he shows is, I mean, it needs to be refined, right? It's like everywhere in academia. As we move forward in history, we will refine those models and we make them sharper and more precise. But it's a good way to start, I guess.
Yeah, and also like given that we are building these new technologies, they're also giving us a way to actually do stuff that we couldn't do before. Like for example, we can rethink governance in a very unique way now. We can rethink economics in a very unique way. It's very interesting to get people on board from all these different spaces and rethink what is possible within like social systems. I feel like that is really the power of Web3 for me. Like it's that we were stuck with particular kinds of governance models and economics models, and this is the first time we're experimenting at such a large scale so quickly. Like we, in some sense, speed ran through most of the mistakes that economics made, like through 1900s, 1800s by like in the DeFi space. I feel like in the last 5-6 years we've speed run through all the mistakes that economics has made in the past and learned our lessons. But I feel like that's where getting these new perspectives, old perspectives into these new spaces are very important. Yeah.
Kat?
Yeah, and I think this aspect is not really covered in the article. If you see the whole process that is mentioned, he talks about getting your objectives and goals right, and he talks about identifying your stakeholders, and then he talks about what patterns would fit your particular system or whatever you're trying to build, so that the incentive structures are right. And then he also talks about how to proof it, by thinking about attack vectors and stuff like that. But he doesn't talk about once the thing is sort of out there, how do you get that real-time feedback and then update with respect to feedback? Because in reality, I feel most systems probably will not be 100% decentralized right from the outset, right from day one. And mostly what will happen is people will slowly decentralize, because as you put things out there, you will try to get feedback of how things are working, get real-time data, then fine-tune your system, and then slowly you kind of go to a stage where it is more and more decentralized. I mean, that's my personal opinion, that for a whole majority of cases, this is how would be most practical way of going about it, as opposed to just straight away you decentralize and then you don't know and you have no control over thing. And then also, once you do decentralize to a good extent, how will that voting mechanism or how will that governance mechanism play a role in giving you the right kind of parameters? Because essentially what is different in our case, in Web3's case, from a more traditional economist point of view, is in a traditional economy, your measurements are always post facto. Like, you've deployed something, you've made some policy, you've put everything out there, and then only later, once in say 5 years, when a consensus happens, or much later, you see what the results are, and based on that, you make some changes at a level. Here, all this is possible real time, right? You could measure it in a month, in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, whatever is your ecosystem is there, and you have the possibility to update it. But if you just completely let that out of your hands and without taking advantage of it, I don't know if that's the most prudent approach. So I found that that particular thing is still should be added in the framework as a last step, which is also like measurement of actual performance and then updating it. That's my just thought.
Especially like long-term governance. I mean, that point I don't think was mentioned as much. Like,
governance isn't really mentioned at all.
Yeah.
He just talks about designing it and how to do it in a, how to look at different parameters, how to go about it in a structured manner.
Yeah.
And another thing I feel is, since he has compared it to engineering design, and most engineering disciplines actually follow the approach that he has mentioned, how they write out a problem, how they test it, how they simulate it, how they then update it, choose existing solvers, etc. So I come from a mechanical engineering background, so I've kind of learned these things in my studies.
Yeah.
But the challenge I feel, and this is a big challenge I feel, is engineered systems, as you're still dealing with machines and materials and devices and stuff, which have fairly predictable behavior once you learn it. Maybe very complex, which you can still algorithmically deduce or mathematically deduce, etc., etc. But is it really possible to extrapolate or take that one step further and build such a model or a system on an economy or on a community basis, which is what Web3 is? I mean, that's what I'm curious to see actually how we progress in the course. Is it to what extent is this possible? To what extent an actual tool can be built which simulates such things? Because I'm not aware of what is the capabilities of the tools right now.
No, so for example, I mean, this is why Michael for me is like my role model in this space, because he in some sense is solving this problem of like block science. Like, he's the CEO of block science, and from what I understand is they have, in some sense, they are building ways through which we can, like, what do you say, like, build, like, every time you have humans in the picture, there is unpredictability by definition. But in some sense, they're building techniques like using Monte Carlo simulations through parameter sweeps and stuff. They're building entire simulations using humans as almost like actuators within like those circuit design models, and then actually simulating all the potential things they could do, series of actions they could do, and seeing where it breaks. And when the system breaks, that's when you know something more about the system than you did. And now you can do it in an environment where you're testing it without actually putting it out. So I find that approach very interesting. Like,
So actually, this is exactly the part which excites me most about the course, to see how this will be done in a more, as you say, modeled in a simulated manner. As I mean, probably bringing perspective from the complexity domain, which is a particular discipline which does look at it in this way, where you've got different people or agents, as how they call it, and there's an emergent phenomena.
Yeah.
So that's something that is interesting for me to see. But I don't know. I mean, since I don't have the background, I personally feel it's quite challenging. But let's see how that
I would
goes.
love spending an hour just discussing complexity and chaos theory, because that was my favorite course in college.
Are you attending the complexity weekend? This weekend is complexity weekend. Yeah, maybe you are. If you are not aware,
I wasn't aware. No, I actually studied this in college, so for me that was my favorite course.
It starts tonight actually. So if you are interested, today, tomorrow, and Sunday, 3 days, there's a lot of events and talks, etc. So you can check it out. Complexity weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be joining this.
Yeah.
Would you mind putting that in the chat as well, if there is a link to this event?
Yeah, I'll drop it. I'll drop it.
Great. Kat, you wanted to add?
I was say Roro's like, oh, sorry guys, I gotta go.
He's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, you're like, oh, something came up. Yeah, sorry, I'm in a different place, and the light is really intense, so you're getting a lot of stripes right now. Yeah, I coming from a design or like user experience design background, very human centric. Like passion is very much culture, like shifting cultural norms, like your relationship with your identity. That kind of more design side, like bigger picture, but very human centered. And I think that I was at a very heavy developer conference earlier last week, and it's just really fascinating to me, like getting the perspective of people who are building things because they think it's cool to build and they can build it, and it's just kind of like looking at machines and how can we like put this piece over here and see what comes out, and put this piece over here to this comes out, and then flip this and do this and that. And it's interesting to me because that perspective is very different than how I was taught, or just what my understanding of like, well, it's so cool that you're building something, like you're like able to play around with like have all this innovation with these Lego blocks, so to speak. But it's like, why are you building this? Like just to build it, or are you making something? Like my perspective is you're solving a problem for a human or a human situation. So it's just these two different frame of thoughts that I think this ethics question is like goes quite well with, obviously, like or goes hand in hand with all of this. And I think that's been my biggest takeaway kind of from just working so intensely with developers, and then just seeing their perspective and then understanding mine. It's like there's really these two different perspectives or sides of things. That one is like, well, why are you building this if it's not to solve a problem or if it's not for a human? And then the other one's like, no, it's actually really important to innovate and to see what we can do. But at the end of the day, like none of it, like, to me, my understanding is like, if it's not, why are we like, it has to answer the question of like, how is this helping a human, or how is this gonna, how is a human going to use this, or how's this going to make their life maybe it's not like a good or bad, but just like better, or how will this be a tool that will help them? So I just think that that's really interesting to like kind of tune into like these two different sides to it. But it's at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't matter unless the human uses it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very important perspective, because from my experiences of going to hackathons, it's been like, hey, let's decentralize journalism, let's decentralize this, let's decentralize that, but they don't really know why. Like, it's just because we can doesn't mean we need to, like a lot of times. We need to understand what problem we are really solving here, like what is the real crucial thing that we need to be solving. Yeah, that's honestly, and I think design people get this much better than anybody else, like, because you guys are customer facing at the end of the day, like, yeah.
Well, the whole point is to have a product to put out into the world for people to use. If that ends up being the whole point, then the person using it has to be the first person you're thinking of when you're starting to build it, right? Or I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, this is where blockchains are different. If you see what Trent has mentioned, so stressed so many times in that first article, blockchains are incentive machines. So through blockchain, you can create a system which incentivizes people to do something. So you may be, I mean, like in traditional world, you are trying to understand the user and you're trying to build something which solves some of their problems. Here, you can actually put incentives, and then due to that incentive, something else may happen together which you may not intend or which may not be so good or desired. So I think that's the challenge in building an ecosystem like this, where you may still understand the users individually, but maybe through your incentives, you may drive a certain behavior which may turn out to be not so desirable, even maybe for the individual or even for the society. I think that's what my understanding was.
Yeah, good and bad implications. And I mean, we have the internet, Web 2 as we know it is like the first example. So it's like, well, now we have all this information of how that panned out. Let's do it, and we have a kind of a start over button. I think is what blockchain allows for us to do, which is really, really cool.
I also think, nonetheless,
Yeah.
that blockchains are meant to be incentive machines. You still, and this is what he stresses, right? You need to get the incentives right. So how do you get the incentives right? By questioning, what do people want to be incentivized for, right? We have all of those, I don't want to say dead blockchains, but we have a lot of blockchains that are actually not being used, right? So why is that? Probably because they are offering incentives. They don't matter to humans as much, as the incentives they can get from other blockchains. So I think no matter what, I don't think you really get around the question of what is needed, right, to get the incentive structure
The why.
as well.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's a very crucial point that incentives aren't always monetary. Because, I mean, for example, the reason I love doing this is because Stella is such a warm human being. I really love working with her. I really love, I just pick up projects that she's doing because I'm like, oh shit, I love working with you and I'm going to do whatever you're doing. So for me, I feel like that's such a strong incentive. I'm not getting money out of it, but for me, community is such a huge aspect of it. Feeling like your soul being satisfied from the things you're doing, building something creative. There's so many other incentives that we have as human beings, which sometimes we fail to capture in these spaces.
And actually, Trent also touches upon this. I was watching, I think, in one of his videos, or maybe it's in the article itself, I don't remember. He talks about, and he specifically mentions that there are intrinsic motivations, incentives, and there are extrinsic motivations. And in the course of his writing, is probably touched only upon the extrinsic motivations, but you should also factor in the intrinsic motivations, and probably that is much more sustainable than only purely extrinsic motivation like money.
Completely agree. Yeah. There's a very nice. Okay, yeah, please. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing. You go.
No, so there's a very nice story I'd heard. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but basically there was so when kids they love drawing when they're kids, right? They just take crayons and they do things and they enjoy doing it. Until some teacher comes and they start giving them stars for it, hey, 5 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, or whatever. When the stars are taken away, for some reason, a lot of the kids drop away from actually drawing, which they were doing intrinsically. So a lot of times there's a risk to incentivizing things through tokens, because once the tokens are taken away, then you feel hey, why am I doing this for free? Or why am I doing this without any extrinsic motivation? So there's also that aspect. I don't know how this fits in, but I found that very interesting, that sometimes we risk breaking intrinsic motivation through extrinsic motivation.
Well, it's how many people here are doing this for a TEA POEP at the end of it kind of thing, that idea. I just want the POEP.
So basically what you said is you just incentivize that person by taking away the token.
Yeah.
Right, in a way, think about it.
If
you incentivize them and you disincentivize them.
Token, then this will be not acceptable.
No, but honestly, I think probably all of us in the first instance while we're doing this, no matter if we're local hosts or just participants in DE Fundamental, right? It's intrinsically motivated. It's not because necessarily maybe some of you had a request from the projects or companies you work for saying, hey, you know, in order for you to advance in your job, you should take that course. But I think because this course is actually super, super fresh and new, I don't think that is too much the case. So the intrinsic motivation is actually much, much higher than anything that could come from, you know, extrinsic.
Yeah. I think I'm looking for good conversations and a community. I think that's my main thing. That's the reason I'm here. Yeah.
And also, we just have a lot of fun putting those presentations together.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's on a little bit of a different matter, but from what I understood, the module 4, you said in the past that we would need the use of Python, right?
Yeah, so I asked Angela about this during the past week because I know setting up a coding environment, like for me, it definitely was a struggle, right? I was like, where the hell do I even start doing that? So I asked her what we're going to use, and she said, yeah, we're going to use Python. We're not going to use CatCat. We're not going to use any kind of online simulator. So we have to learn how to set up our own coding environment. So Rohan and I, we're kind of getting on top of that in the sense of figuring out like a good tutorial that we can send you guys, and you know, all the necessary steps essentially you need to take to get that coding environment installed. We also talked to the other Rohan, or I did talk to the other Rohan. Maybe there are more than two actually. And asked him, what are we going to do if some of you, because I wasn't sure if everyone had a desktop computer or a laptop, right? And I figured some of you might be joining also from phones. So you guys would probably need to have a coding environment on your phones. So I got some recommendations for him as well on how to set that up as well. So I think we will get you covered ahead of time, so we can either walk through this in a specific session together, or just, you know, send you the, like, essentially a manual on how to do this.
So it's not a decision from this group specifically. It's a decision for like the whole course process, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was wondering, since I mean, I don't know exactly how they work, but it seems that there is tools to be like all the modeling, all the testing, without actually having any coding knowledge. I was wondering why the choice was leaning towards actually needing to learn how to code.
Yeah, so it's Angela says this also in a lot of the recent sessions she has been leading. Like it is a necessity, right? We need to learn coding. We cannot really avoid that. I can only share with you guys what I've been doing if you're as new to coding as I am. I've been getting from a friend, someone sent me this book. It's called, it's this book, A Smarter Way to Learn Python. So the way this works, and I think it also exists as an ebook. It's, I think, are actually also free copies that you can download from somewhere, because this book is like kind of fairly old, okay? But I didn't say this, okay? Like, if you can't buy a hard copy, please buy a hard copy. So the way this works is every chapter is essentially this guy teaches you one element of, you know, Python coding, and then at the same time you have an online tool that he made, and you practice this specific exercise in, I think, 12 exercises per chapter. And only after you get it all right in one go, you can actually move on to the next one. And it's been incredibly helpful. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you looked at websites such as like Code Academy and stuff like that?
I have tried this one called Data Quest. Data Quest for me was the best one, like for Python. Like, it was very interactive, similar. Like, they teach you a concept, immediately you're executing it on the side, and it's like side by side. Mm-hmm. So at least the first module is pretty, from what I understand, it's free, the beginner Python series. So that was my way, that's how I actually learned Python to begin with. So even that is something you should try, yeah.
And also something that I found super useful is, you know, whenever I thought, oh, this is a nice PFP project, how did they make this, right? like I just went onto their contract on Etherscan and started like reading through the Solidity code. It's not that I actually understand what's happening there, but I started to get an idea of how they are structuring it, right? And then sometimes the developers are actually fairly nice, and I put in all the like little comments, right? So it kind of like helps you to like wrap your mind around it a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Also, I'm very open to helping anybody who is stuck with Python in the long run. Like, if you're stuck with like anywhere, like in downloading your environments or even like running your code, I think I'll be more than happy to take extra sessions in the middle somewhere whenever we can fit it in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think like yeah, you have to do it. For me, it's also a struggle because you know. I have my own project, and then I'm part of other projects, and then I also have my freelance work, and I'm doing with Rohan this study group, which obviously needs preparation, and then I also need to learn Python, so it's definitely a struggle to make it all work.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not really a way around it. Wait, what is Rachel saying? Stay away from Haskell? Who's Haskell?
It's what Cardano uses for their it's the core for their Plutus developer language. It is absolutely it's supposed to be a great language for business, banking, and stuff of that nature. But yeah, I took about a month, 2 months of it, and didn't know anything more after 2 months than I did when I came in. It's yeah. No, I would just download or just go look at a book and look at some code. You'll understand, especially if you're used to like Python or Java or JS, any of those. So it's a different language. The logic is extremely different.
Also, Stella. Yeah, sorry.
Don't scare us. Let's just start at one point and then get more complex.
Yeah, Stella. So,
I am one.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering, what is the difference between Python and Solidity?
Big difference. So Python, I mean, Solidity is, I guess, one of the languages through which you can code on the Ethereum virtual machine. So it's basically majorly a smart contract building language, even though it is a Turing complete language. So you can technically do pretty much anything you want with it. And so is Python. Python is a Turing complete language, which means again you can do pretty much anything with it. But it's majorly a very considered a relatively beginner language. You can introduce yourself to it. A lot of the data science community, a lot of web development community pretty much is on Python. So you constantly you get a lot of communities and libraries available directly. So Python, if anyone asks me what language to start with, I would always recommend Python. Yeah.
Why not Solidity then? Because it sounds like that's going to be most useful for what we're doing.
With Solidity, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to do smart contract development, you would always go with Solidity. But if you want to go with building also web development, data science. So in our case, token engineering, we are using Python to, in some sense, model these very complicated mechanism design problems. So Python is one, because it has a lot of data science toolkits readily available. We can use pandas, NumPy, etc., which makes it much easier. I can, in fact, next session after the call gets over, I can actually show you something I'm building, and we can just read through it. You can literally read it like it's language from my perspective. Python is much more readable than any other language. Yeah.
Is it a package? What you're building, is it related to token system?
Yeah.
So could you share it?
I'm doing the CAD Edu course. So I finished the beginner and intermediate one. I'm working on the advanced one now.
Would it be possible
to
share that Predator Prey model that you're building?
Yeah, I will. Maybe next time I'll screen share. I'll even share it with you. I don't know. So what I'm doing is actually making it on Python, and I'm also making it on machinations at the same time. And I'm actually learning both the tools together and seeing if my results are the same.
Wow, then you can teach everybody.
Oh yeah, surely. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I know we've had a great talk, but I
Yeah.
think we should wrap this up. And yeah, I hope you could get something out of this study club today. And we will see you next week for session 3.
I had a great time. This was a good discussion.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Rohan.